Well, coming up next, I talk with veteran South Florida turnaround expert and CPA Jim Martin. And in an interview taped earlier, I asked Jim what a recent turnaround trend he's encountered was all about.
Well, Dave, what's happened is, as a result of the Great Recession, we've had a lot of high net worth individuals that have started to approach us who had started their businesses many years ago. And we're talking baby boomers that are now in their 60s, perhaps approaching 70, had started their business many years ago and had done very well. Over the years, they guaranteed a lot of debt. They had real estate debt as part of their businesses. And so these people found themselves in a upside down from a leverage standpoint, right, from their personal balance sheets, and so they've approached us to ask us to help them work with the banks to see if we can't get some of the debt forgiven or restructured.
Well, okay, so you go in and talk to the bankers on behalf of your client? Is that the way this is?
That's exactly it, Dave. We are going in and we are addressing the banks, and many of these banks we have deep relationships with. Right. And
well, so, just out of curiosity, are we talking multi-million-dollar deals here that you have to restructure?
There's some, Dave, that have been up to $15 to $20 million.
Wow!
So these are people that did very well over the years, and they built up a very nice business or a group of businesses. And over the years, they acquired real estate and they levered their personal balance sheets, meaning they took on more debt as a result of the values of this real estate and the value of their businesses, and ultimately they had a very nice enterprise going, and then the Great Recession hit and everything plummeted. And so, as I said, many of them have found their personal balance sheets upside down. They have guaranteed a lot of the debt, and so they need help restructuring that debt and getting themselves right-sized.
Well, you know, you're one of the top turnaround artists in the United States for corporations and stuff. Are you applying the same principle to the personal balance sheets of these guys and these people that are in trouble?
We are, because when you think of some of these personal balance sheets, it's like a corporation's balance sheet, right? I mean, they have a lot of fixed assets in the form of real estate. They have individual businesses, operating businesses that they own or their family owns, and so these are all essentially subsidiaries, if you will, of their personal balance sheet. And then they have a lot of debt both on the balance sheet personally as well as off the balance sheet in what we call personal guarantees.
I got you. Okay, when you say a personal guarantee, these guys will borrow a lot of money, let's say a couple $1 million, and personally guarantee will pay it back? Is that what we're talking about?
That's right. And in today's world, the banks will always, well, not always, but oftentimes require both the husband and wife to guarantee the debt. So everybody's on the hook, if you will, for the debt. And it's not just a couple $1 million. In many cases, we've had clients come to us with $30 to $40 million of personally guaranteed debt. And so we've worked with the lenders, and many times it's a consortium of lenders, to try to restructure that debt. And as I said, many times we've had the banks realize that this business is not there anymore, and therefore the banks have forgiven a lot of the debt and restructured the guarantees so that these businesses and the owners can survive.
Well, does a lot of times do these guys threaten bankruptcy in order to get leverage?
Well, they do. They
you don't recommend that?
No, I prefer to keep them out, as you know. I mean, we've always talked about that, you and I, and I prefer to keep it out of court, as I say, right? And I want to do that from a personal standpoint as well as a professional standpoint. Well, case in point, we have a family down in Miami that was faced with this very dilemma, and so we got the business sold. We sold the business, and then we turned around and we worked with the banks to work on a deficiency note.
I got you.
So that the owners could pay that deficiency note over a period of time with a lot forgiven, and that allowed them to avoid personal bankruptcy, which in this case it was a very proud family, and they just didn't want the stigma associated with personal bankruptcy.
That's what next question. A lot of these people have got stellar reputations, and they've fallen on bad times, and they don't want this to be public knowledge. So that's one of the reasons you step in to handle the situation?
Well, that's right, and we have a case in L.A. with a client in L.A.
It's not the Los Angeles Dodgers.
No, it's not Mr. McCourt. But no, it's a case in where our client actually had L.A. Lakers. Speaking of sports teams, he had L.A. Laker floor seats. I mean, he was a very prominent businessman out in L.A. And he didn't want to be involved with a lot of the lenders with whom he had worked over the years, and so he asked us to intervene on his behalf and to work with these lenders across the country to try to restructure his debt, which we were able to do. And in his case, we were able to obtain about a $15 million forgiveness of debt.
Wow. Well, that's pretty strong, Jim.
Well, it's big numbers, but then again, the entire debt that was borrowed was big as well. So,
well, what's been the biggest one you've handled?
$58 million of debt that was forgiven.
$58 million of banks wrote that off?
They did.
They should give you a crown of roses and a big bonus check on that deal. I mean, goodness gracious, Jimmy, that's terrific.
Well, what you do, Dave, is you're sitting there with all the constituents and you say, what is really going to work here for all parties?
Yeah.
The bank wants something out of it, right? They want to recover something. The owners or the businesses can't provide the cash. They can, and it's likely they're not going to ever be able to repay it. And so everybody has to be realistic at the table, and that's what we try to do. We try to intervene instead of allowing the lawyers to take over.
Right.
We try to intervene from a business standpoint and tell the banks and show the banks that what we think realistically the owners and the business can support.
I got you. Well, you do exactly the same thing with on a personal level that you do with corporate when you turn around the big corporations across internationally, what you're doing now.
That's right. You learn the same things, right? I mean, there are a lot of the same principles you can apply to one's personal balance sheet. And when the numbers are similar, then it really works.
All righty. Well, Jim, God bless you. And thanks for being here, being a former sponsor of the business show. God bless you. And good luck on this new piece of business just falling out from heaven on you.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Dave.